was like, oh, okay, I got it now. Oh man, so how's everything going with you, man?
I'm doing pretty well, dude. Just got through midterms, coming up on the end of spring break, going back to classes to well, going back to classes tomorrow, as you know how that is. Not
Yeah.
officially going back, but back to staring at my laptop, which I'm actually doing right now anyway, so it's not that much of a change, but seems to be like 12 hours of my day every day now. But yeah, classes are going well. We're right in the middle of March Madness, which is awesome that we even get to have March Madness. And it's been just it seems like upset special after upset special this year. I really thought there'd be less upsets because there's no crowd, which really fuels an underdog. They get behind it
Yes.
because like if you go to March Madness, Sasha, right? Like let's say you
Mhm.
got tickets, right? And there's two teams you don't care about, you're probably gonna root for the underdog, right? Which
Right.
is most people's mentality. So they get behind, especially an underdog that's looking good, like out of nowhere. People root for them.
Right.
So it's like, mainly empty buildings, some fans, some family, mostly family members and other players, type stuff like that. So I figured there'd be a lot less upsets. And boy, was I wrong because my bracket might as well go in the trash already. So
And I was the same way too, and you're absolutely right. And I was telling this to Titus, and he was going to join us, but he's too pissed off right now because Illinois lost. I was sending him messages. He told me to, to eat a dick. He said, "Fuck you." Damn well I don't want to talk to anybody.
so he's
so
taking it. He's taking it pretty well, is what you're saying.
pretty well, yeah. But beforehand, I just want to say welcome everybody to Anger Management. In this week's episode, I got Dillon here. He's from Dill Industries Worldwide. He's also a member of what is it called? Triple Overtime.
Triple Overtime is the sports show. May I Take This Bump is the wrestling show. Dill Industries Worldwide is the YouTube channel. So we got a few different things going on there. You can also catch me on Twitter at Dillon Reports, DillonReports, if I can spell correctly. That's all one word. And then, yeah, and also on TikTok if you're into that kind of thing. Dill's TikTok, all one word, DILLS TikTok. So I'm available on a few different social medias. Got some different things going on. I'm glad to be here with you, though, Sasha.
And I'm really glad to have you there, have you here also. Just like what we are just talking about just a moment ago, March Madness is this is definitely madness. This is probably one of the best March Madnesses that I've ever seen because even though, like what we said, our brackets are destroyed, but you know what? This is very interesting the way how it's going. How do you feel about it?
Well, it's funny you say now that it's like you get to a certain point, right? Like in the beginning, because you and I are in a bracket pool together. We've got like
Yes.
15 people in this bracket pool, so it's somewhat competitive. There's some people in there who watch basketball more than others. I got a couple buddies
Right.
who are like way into it. Some are casuals. You know what I mean? So at first, I was very competitive. And I made a few homer picks, some upset specials, like I picked Oregon State. I felt good about them because they looked hot in the Pac-12 tournament. They knocked off, I believe it was Tennessee and a 5 seed. Pretty big
Right.
upset right there. I picked Rutgers, the 10 over the 7 of
See.
Clemson because, I'm from Rutgers. So, of course, I got to go with my boys there. And, it just seemed like another easily attainable upset. You can't just go straight chalk on these things. You can't just pick
Yes.
all the higher
No,
seeds. You
you
got to
can't.
pick some upsets in there because you never know what's going to happen. However, I did not have Texas losing in the first round, who was in my Final Four, which infuriated me. I've never been so mad at a game that I really shouldn't care about. Like, this is what March Madness does to you. I start hating on the underdog. I'm like, no, boo! This tiny
Oh man.
school. And like, not only did by the time Texas lost, I think is when I kind of stopped caring about my bracket as much,
Mhm.
and now I'm just enjoying the games. Illinois lost today, who I had in the finals, losing to
Yes.
Gonzaga. And I was like, well, who cares now? My
Yes.
bracket
Now.
is officially lit on fire. Never go against Sister Jean, I guess, especially on a Sunday, dude. So we
you Dylan, you are absolutely right. I'm gonna tell you because I went to Angelo State when I first went to college. I went to Angelo State. Angelo State is about an hour away from Abilene.
okay.
So before Abilene went to Division One, we're rivals. So I have to hate Abilene Christian.
Of course.
So with them beating UT, Texas, I'm like, I can't. Oh, you want to cheer for the underdog because they're in a little town in the middle of nowhere, West Texas. But yet it's like, come on, you're my rivals. I hate you guys. But it's really good to know that they pulled off something that I wouldn't have thought that they would have done. I thought they were going to get run out of the building. What was your surprise?
The Texas was definitely a surprise, especially like I think by then I was a little beat up by the bracket too, so I was extra mad. It's the last game of the first round, and I'm like, well, as long as Texas holds, I'm looking pretty good. I think I'm at second place in our bracket pool right now, right? Still,
Right.
even after all this, and I was like, as long as Texas, because I lost to Ohio State to Oral Roberts, which I think most people did,
Right.
especially in our bracket. I
Mm-hmm.
lost. What was it? Ohio beat Virginia. And you're just shaking your head at Virginia, going, "Oh, come on, Virginia, why are you doing this to me again?" you know,
The second time that they lost in the first game when they were a high rated team, did they lose?
they were a
By
16. They were a one that lost to a 16 before, yeah.
Yeah, the
And then they
first
won the
time.
championship last March Madness because we didn't have it last year. Obviously, got canceled because of COVID. Everybody knows that. But the one before that, they won, and now they're bounced out in the first round again. This isn't as obviously as big as a 16 over the one.
The one,
I
yeah.
think they might have been like the number one overall team that year. I'd have
I
to go
think
back and
so. They
look.
were that year,
They were
yes.
really good, and Tony Bennett's a great coach. He's coached at WSU. As you know, I'm from Washington State. You're from Washington State. We know Tony Bennett well. Coached the
Yes.
Cougars. They have not been the same since. As the greatest
Mm-hmm.
Cougar team I've ever seen in my lifetime. So
Mm-hmm.
they got to the Sweet 16, I believe, with them before they got absolutely throttled by North Carolina and Hansbrough. But that's dating us a little bit there. So people are probably like, who? What?
Tyler
but
Hansbrough, people, you have to know he was a monster.
Psycho T, man.
There
He
we
was
go.
good, dude. He was really good. And even in the NBA, he's not a superstar. He was never a superstar, but he was
Yes.
effective in his role, I believe.
Yes.
He's just one of those guys that you definitely want to have on your team and not play against, if you know
That
what
is
I mean. You know what I
yes.
mean? Yeah, like a Draymond Green, a Dennis Rodman type, you know what I mean? Where you're like you're like I love having this guy, but I hate
like
playing
I don't
against
want to
him.
play against him. You're
Yeah,
right about
exactly.
that.
But my bracket is looking okay. I think to answer your question, the biggest surprise to me has to be Texas. Even though Oral Roberts, Ohio State, I guess I didn't believe in Ohio State as much. I had them winning the first two games and then losing,
Yeah.
and they only won the first two games because I couldn't make a case for them losing one of those two games. I thought they were a little overranked as a 2 seed personally. And I watched a lot of Big Ten games because I am going to Rutgers, so I got a first-hand view of them, and I was like, they're good, but I don't know if they're Final Four good. So I got them knocked off, and I believe it was a Sweet 16. So that didn't hurt too bad. The Texas one blew my mind, though. I did not expect. I thought I was a genius by picking Texas in the Final Four because I was like, you can't go all one seeds, right? You can't go all one seeds in the Final Four.
Right. Of course you
And
can.
so I was either between Texas or Bama. And Bama had a tough fight in the first round. So I was like, man, I'm glad I picked Texas. I'm the man. I'm a genius. And then Texas goes and loses. So I'm not the man. I'm not a genius. And, I was shut up. So, but that's why they play the game. And that's why they call it March Madness.
That's why they call it March Madness because you know what? You're gonna lose your hair. You're going to go mad. You're gonna be like, oh my god, I can't believe this. Oh my god, you're absolutely right because I know I picked, and you know what? I know you were like when I told you I picked Georgetown to go into the championship. And you were like, why? Because the way how I had it set up, I really looked at it, and it was like, okay, their road can be paved if they just had like some upset, the right upsets to go their way. And so when I looked at it, I'm like, yeah, I got them there. And then when they lost, I mean, they got blown up by Colorado. I'm like, oh hell no. Okay, but we got Illinois. Illinois is still there. They're looking strong. They're looking good. Who can go wrong? Yeah, they may have a fight against Loyola Chicago. Yeah, my brackets.
They never looked good in that game, dude. I
No,
watched that whole game earlier today. They never looked good
Mhm.
in that game. It wasn't like a back and forth and they got caught at the end or an overtime. It looked like they had no business even like it being as close as it was. They got thoroughly outplayed, thoroughly out hustled, thoroughly, out everything. and they're out of the tournament because of it as a result, you know. So, and yeah, when you told me Georgetown, I had Georgetown winning the first game. I was like, well, they're hot off their conference tournament, which is a hell of a run, by the way. You got to give them credit for that.
Yeah,
No one had them making the tournament at all. And
Right.
they and another one of my good friends is a big Georgetown fan too, and he was keeping us updated on this constantly, you know. And I was like, okay, I was like, I need more upsets. I'll pick them to win the first game. They got throttled by Colorado, absolutely eviscerated. So when you told me that you had picked them to go to the finals, I was like, man, I thought I was bad. I got Rutgers in the Elite Eight, you know. And I picked them just because. Now, I know it's going to be a tall task for them to make that, obviously, but I picked them because I needed upsets. And if I'd rather overshoot my home team than undershoot them. I hate to say Rutgers is going to lose in the second round, and then they make this huge run, and I look like a horrible fan, student, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so even though I am a sports journalist, I still am a big fan of Rutgers University, obviously. And it's their first tournament since 1991 and their first win since 1983. This is a big deal around here. So, and you never know, they could get into a slugfest with Houston tonight. You know, Houston is a big defensive team. Rutgers is a defensive team. You got Ron Harper Jr. at Rutgers, 15 points per game. Geo Baker's good. You know, you got some players on Rutgers. I think a lot of people don't know how tough the Big Ten was, even though they're not the number one team coming to the Big Ten. The Big Ten was just eating itself all season, and is one of the tougher conferences, if not the toughest conference in college basketball. I know they've taken a lot of L's so far in the tournament. But you never know what can happen, right? And this is why they play. You know, if Ohio can beat Virginia, why couldn't Rutgers beat Houston? Is what I'm saying.
You're right about that. You know, speaking of that, I'll tell you because I'm gonna bring up Titus again. Because he's from Illinois, he's like this Big Ten fanatic. He loves it, and he was really telling me you need to start watching Big Ten basketball. It is just so you know, you need to watch it. He was telling me about Kofi. What I forgot. Kofi. You know what I'm talking about. Forgot what his name is. And everybody from Illinois. I was watching Iowa with Luka Garza and their guards. They're looking nice. And then I watched the Rutgers game. I couldn't believe. And when they said Ron Harper Jr., I'm like, oh, he's there. Oh, and the way how they're looking. Everybody there. Purdue. Michigan, and you know you can't go wrong with Michigan State, even though that they got bounced out. Which I hate to say this, I did pick Michigan State to go somewhere because I don't like to go against Tom Izzo. That's one thing I don't like.
That's the thing is they have a great coach. It feels like a team like that, if they get in the tournament, they can make some noise. You know, just like Syracuse right now. Like I've got that game on as we speak, and they're right there with West Virginia. You know, I don't think a lot of people had them getting this far. I was like, Syracuse, I'm penciling them in winning the first round just because it seems like, you know, they always find a way to at least make a little bit of a run. You know, I mean, they've had some first round losses, of course, every team has, but you don't bet against those tenured veteran coaches like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, if you don't know who to pick, go with the coach or the star player. You know, in my mind, that's how I go. Because I'm like you know, we're all busy. We can't watch every single basketball game. Like I'm not, you know, Mel Kiper Jr. of college basketball over here watching 18 hours of tape. That'd be awesome. I wish I was getting paid to do that.
I wish I could. I get paid to do that. Yeah, hell yeah.
Exactly. So I know, you know, like the big teams. You know, like I know like Gonzaga, Illinois, like you were saying, Texas. I followed a little bit. I followed the Big Ten. I followed the Pac-12. Other than that, though, you know, like some of these smaller schools like Oral Roberts, it's like, I don't know anything about Oral Roberts. I had to look up where this school even is, you know, like, so it's hard to pick the tournament and you never know what's going to happen. Like the ball still has to go in the hole at the end of the day. And if you're not making shots, then, you know, sometimes you just have off days. Like basketball is a tricky sport, man. Like
very tricky. So what would you think is, do you think that this is probably one of the most exciting tournaments so far?
Yeah, I think especially in recent memory, you know, because it feels like we don't know if, like, it's funny because like at the beginning, Gonzaga's undefeated, right? So a lot of people penciled in Gonzaga to win the championship, which a lot of people were like, not necessarily a lock, But
Mm-hmm.
it's like you got to respect the undefeated season, and they look like the best team in the NCAA right now. So
Right.
if in that sense, it felt like it wasn't that wide open. But now that we've had all these upsets, it feels like you never know what could happen. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Gonzaga might get into a tight one. They might lose. I hope not because they're one of my last Final Four teams left. And I think it'd be great for the state of Washington, where I'm originally from. I live in New Jersey now, but I'm from the state of Washington, for Gonzaga to bring home the championship. They've been close many times. Mark Few is a great coach. That's a tremendous program. I think it's one of the upper echelon basketball programs out there. I know it doesn't have the same winning pedigree as Duke or North Carolina yet, but they're still relatively new in that sense and how long they've actually been successful. And I think they got to the championship before. They got close, and I think this could be their year, especially now that Illinois is gone, Texas is gone. Like who's really left to threaten them if they get in the Final Four? Like a Baylor. Baylor still looks pretty good, but other than that, I think this championship really we're setting the table for Gonzaga. It feels like it's Gonzaga's to lose at this point.
That's pretty
If
much
Gonzaga
it.
goes and gets knocked off by Ohio or something, then well, that's the madness, brother.
Well, I do. Well, they're still in the same. They're still in the same tournament. They're in the same bracket, the region with Iowa. So I would really love to watch that game. That if
Yeah.
those two face each other, I would really love to see that one. Yeah, because I'm over here right now. I have the brackets up here so I can be able to
Iowa's
make
an
sure I don't
interesting
somehow.
team. I see a lot of people don't really believe in Iowa long term.
Mhm.
Luca Garza, he's a tremendous player, but I think a lot of people don't think his skill set necessarily translates to this type of tournament environment. So I see a lot of people who had them over Grand Canyon and then losing in the second round. I believe I had them losing. I don't have mine in front of me, but I believe I had them losing to Oregon because I always believe in Dana Altman, and Oregon always seems to get hot in the tournament for me. They're kind of my lucky charm, so I always seem to pick them deep because it always pays off for some reason. Oregon always gets hot in the tournament, it feels like. So I went with Oregon. I had them knocking off Iowa, I believe it was, in my bracket. So, but you never know. Like you said, you never know what can happen, man. So Iowa versus Gonzaga would be a great game to watch, though.
It would definitely be a great game to watch. I mean, you can't go wrong against Kansas. If Kansas can get past USC,
Did you watch the Kansas Eastern Washington game?
No, I didn't. I
with
was
the
at
Groves brothers, who became like overnight sensations. That was a fun game, dude, and the Groves were giving it to him, dude.
Really?
I thought Eastern Washington was going to pull this game off. I think the older brother dropped 35, the younger brother dropped like 23 and 10.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're balling on them in the first half. The big story of the game, though, is the second half. Kansas obviously adjusted. They have more depth too, so I think that hurt Eastern Washington. That's the thing with those smaller schools.
Yeah.
They don't have the depth, and they don't necessarily adjust as well, I think. So once they adjusted, Kansas caught them. But Eastern Washington really impressed me because I did not expect it to be that close. Like I think they're up at the half by like 8, 9 points, something like that. Like they're putting it to them for a while there with old school down low post, outside shooting, stuff like that too. So it was a lot of fun to watch. And plus, they both looked like they belonged on semi-pro with their big afros and sweatbands and everything. So that's pretty cool to see. So,
well, I'm going to have to look at some of the highlights because again, I didn't get a chance, and when I got home, I went right to sleep. And one thing is, I don't know about you. I have the CBS Sports app on my TV, and I normally do my catch up there, and I didn't get a chance to. I went right to sleep and woke up and started doing errands. So I'll definitely look at those highlights for that.
Yeah.
So I mean, besides this, and I know we just work. It seems like we're just in love with the way how this tournament is. This is what I'm gonna be honest with you. This is why I love March Madness because this is where you get to see everybody, and not like college football where it's just only the big, the cool people can go to the dance, and the little teams just go to the little crappy little place. Everybody's there, and you get to see who's really good, and everybody has a chance to play. Because I think that like when we were talking about UT and Abilene Christian, I'm thinking like some people were probably thinking like, okay, well maybe it'll be like I'm using college football for analogy. like okay, where Abilene Christian is coming out of nowhere, like how Hawaii played Georgia in the 2007 Sugar Bowl, and
Where
they're
they
like
got
saying, okay, well,
throttled
yeah,
by Georgia. Yeah.
yeah,
That Colt Brennan.
That Colt Brennan team.
Yeah.
DeShaun Moreno was just sitting there running up and down. DJ Shockley was it? Yeah, remember DJ Shockley?
Everyone, we all thought it was gonna be just like we thought it was gonna be like Boise State and Oklahoma, right? We're like, they got a shot, and then Georgia said no.
No,
the biggest discrepancy in that game, Sasha, was the offensive line of Hawaii against the defensive line of Georgia. They could not protect Colt Brennan. They couldn't keep him clean. That poor guy got abused, throttled, decimated the whole game, and that was the story of the game. If you cannot protect your quarterback at all, you're not going to win the game.
And you're absolutely right. So you're looking at the score right now. I got to scroll down and look at this right now. But so it looks like Syracuse just took a 2-point lead at this time while we're talking about this. But you know what? There's one thing that I want to talk to you about. So another thing. Now let's just go ahead and let's just have a real open discussion right now. And I want to let everybody know right now. You can tell Dillon is I'm not going to say Seahawks fan. He is a diehard Seahawks fan. You can tell I'm a 49er fan. How do our friendship last?
Somehow we still get along, probably because we don't watch the games together.
So one thing I did, which again, everybody knows I can't stand the damn Seahawks, but because I wanted to talk to Dillon about this, I want to ask you, what is it that your thoughts about this offseason for Seattle? Because I was looking at some certain things. I'm seeing, they're not really making moves in the offseason. So what are your thoughts on this offseason for the Seahawks? Do you think they need to address anything? Do you think they're okay? What do you got?
To me, it's a typical Seattle Seahawks offseason. They're not the kind of team that typically goes out and spends big money immediately. And I know this has been a thing that's driven Seahawks fans crazy for years, but like they'll make trades here and there, but they're not typically the team that will just spend $1 bazillion. And honestly, they didn't have a whole lot of room under the cap. There's been talk of them restructuring Russell Wilson's contract to make room. I don't know if that's like actually going to happen or if that's just a rumor, because I've only seen it on like rumor type posts. Nothing official has come out or anything like that from Wilson himself or Adam Schefter or any other reputable sources. But they did trade for Gabe Jackson from the Raiders, which will help the offensive line. I know that is obviously a big thing with Russell Wilson. It's a big story this offseason is him saying he wants better protection. Then it's kind of snowballed into maybe he wants a trade, and then I don't want to trade, but here's the 4 teams I wouldn't mind going to, which to me is like, if you're married to a woman, Sasha, Dan Patrick said this, if you're married to a woman, you don't go, I'm happily married, but here's the 4 women I wouldn't mind dating. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to sit here as a Seahawks fan and say, oh, no, everything's fine. He's definitely not going anywhere. I don't think he's going anywhere this off season because the dead cap hit would be negative $39 million to the Seahawks to trade him. And plus, then they'd be without a quarterback.
Right.
Pete Carroll is a good coach, but he's not getting any younger. I don't know if he wants to completely flip the switch and start over with an unproven quarterback, even with good draft picks, even with maybe some defensive starters. I know the Bears supposedly offered 3 first-rounders, a 3rd-rounder, and 2 starters, and we'll wash your car and make your dinner and all this other stuff for Russell Wilson, and the Seahawks just said no. I don't know if it was strictly because they weren't interested in the trade. I don't know if it's because they think they can work things out with Wilson. I think they still think they can, and I think there's still hope to do that. I talked about this on my own show, that as Seahawks fans, we all need to get ready for the worst, that Wilson's probably not going to retire a Seahawk because, as you know, you were a 49ers fan. Joe Montana did not retire a 49er, right? He went and played on Kansas City.
Technically, he did. He signed that 1-day contract.
I know. I'm saying he didn't never put on another uniform, though.
Yeah,
he went and played for Kansas City. Joe Namath went and played for another team. Johnny Unitas went and played for another team. Peyton Manning. Tom Brady just did it. Brett Favre. I could go on and on and on and on. It happens. You know, just because they're Hall of Fame quarterbacks doesn't mean they're not going to play for another team, especially if you can't work things out. Sometimes working relationships, as we know in the business world, don't always, you know, you can't. It's the thing with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady lasting 20 years. Everyone expects that to happen with everybody now. That is an anomaly, man.
Yeah.
That not just in sports, but in life. You know, it's
true.
hard to be married for 20 years. It's hard to be in a business relationship for 20 years. It's hard to be a quarterback and coach working that closely together for 20 years because they didn't just show up on game day and just play the game. They do game plans all week. They're talking on the phone. You know what I mean? Eventually, even if nobody did anything wrong, you might get kind of sick of the other person. You know, you're like, you know, it's like when you start dating somebody, you're in the honeymoon phase, and they do something that you think is cute, and then after 2 years, like, man, it drives me nuts when they do this. Like, you know, they like tap their pencil or something insignificant. Right. You know what I mean? So I think the Seahawks offseason is going very Seahawksingly, if that could be a word. You know, they re-signed Puna Ford, who is a good guy on the defensive line. There's rumor that they're going to be able to re-sign Dunlap. They re-signed Chris Carson at a cheaper rate because he didn't get signed anywhere else. I don't know if maybe they just want as many buyers as he anticipated, but the Seahawks got him at kind of a discount there for him being probably the best running back left on the market, I would say. And then, you know, like I said, there's a rumor that Dunlap might come back, and they got Gabe Jackson. They don't have many draft picks, which is something I'm concerned about. I assume they will trade back in the draft because that is completely on brand for Pete Carroll. Even if they have a first rounder, like it's like a joke as a Seahawks fan waiting for the draft at the end of because they're usually drafting in a later round, you know, because they're always making the playoffs, like waiting till pick number 24, and then they just trade back. You know, it's like, why did I even watch this as a Seahawks fan?
Watch the shit. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's completely pointless. But yeah, I think this offseason is going okay, as you asked, but I don't think it's anything to get overly excited about so far.
Well, the thing is because I'll circle back to the Chris Carson and Rashard Penny and all those other picks and everything. But I want to go ahead and talk about, you know, like you said, Russell Wilson, because again, he's on the radio. I've never known Russell Wilson to be very adamant to throw the organization under the bus publicly, to let it be known he's not happy. He's on the radio, you know, he's making these demands. He's saying that he's not happy. And then, like you said, like we all know, the agent saying, hey, he's not going anywhere, but here are the 4 teams. You know, and this is one other reason why I wanted Titus on here. And damn it, Titus, why did Illinois have to lose? Because he was saying, you know what, maybe Seattle's going to get sick and tired of all this stuff. First, you hear the rumors about Sierra wanting him to be traded to New York because she doesn't like it up there. And now you're hearing this, and they're like, you know, maybe we're just tired of it. We'll just have to deal with something else. And I told them, well, if they do that, who do they got afterwards?
Exactly.
Geno Smith? Geno Smith? I mean, you know, they got no one.
Sasha, I'm right there with you because it's the same thing. As a member of Seahawks fandom, you know, there's a little spot on the internet that I despise called Seahawks Twitter. And not all Seahawks Twitter fans, but a lot of them are just like whiny and they're so negative about everything. You know, they're like, fire Pete Carroll, cut Russell Wilson, destroy the defense, all this stuff, you know, after like a regular season loss even. Like, and it's like, and I always ask them, like, okay, if you fire Pete Carroll because you think he's holding Russell Wilson back or something, who steps in? Who do you have as a better hire, right? Because I think even you as a 49er fan, you got to admit Pete Carroll's at least like what, a top 8 coach at the worst in the league?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like you said, yeah. Because
he's easily the greatest coach the Seahawks have ever had. He beats Mike Holmgren because he's been to 2 Super Bowls instead of 1, and he won 1 of the Super Bowls. Should have won the other one. We all know how that went. And then Russell Wilson is obviously the greatest quarterback the Seahawks have ever had. So I don't understand people. And the Sierra thing always drove me nuts because there really was like, with this story currently, there's Russell Wilson on the air talking about it. The Sierra thing, which is manufactured internet rumors, Russell Wilson and Sierra never came out and said, we want to live in New York, we'd rather move there, or anything like that. That never was a real thing to me. So, and the people who get mad at Russell Wilson when he has a bad game, they go, well, it's ever since he got with Sierra. It's like, you think these other quarterbacks aren't married or have significant others? Like, and like, let the man live. Like after they lost in the playoffs, like it was him and his kid on vacation, and I see people in the comments like criticizing him, like maybe you should be studying film and tape instead. It's like the dude can't go on
like the man
vacation.
can't go out and have a good time with his kids or anything, huh?
He's a human being. Like it just imagine like, and I know all athletes get this. I'm sure Jimmy Garoppolo gets this, or Aaron Rodgers gets this. Like everybody gets this, but it just blows my mind, and it just like makes me want to stay off the internet comments because I cannot believe that people are so self-entitled that they think that like these football players owe us anything. Like they have a job, they do their job extremely well. Russell Wilson gets paid a crap ton of money because he's one of the best in the world at his position. Like the guy can go on vacation if he wants. Who cares?
Right.
Yeah, who cares, man? Like it drives me nuts. But in order to answer your question about the Russell Wilson controversy, it started out on Dan Patrick, and it seemed innocent enough. Dan, I wouldn't say he prodded him, but he kind of asked him a few times, a few different questions, trying to get a response out of him. And he asked him if he's frustrated with the Seahawks. And Wilson said, well, I'm frustrated with getting hit so much, and he said, we need to be better up front. And he said, part of that is on me, though. Like he took some blame in the offensive line, maybe the audibles. I don't know. As fans, we don't know exactly what goes on behind closed doors. But ever since that interview, this thing has snowballed into insurmountable amounts of just drama and controversy. And like we've had all these stories, like I think The Athletic released a story where like supposedly Russell Wilson before the Cardinals game was trying to give his input on how to fix the offense when they were struggling, and they basically just ignored him. Which, I mean, The Athletic is a reputable source, but man, like if that is true, that is not good. Like you don't just blow off your star quarterback like that. And then there was other rumor. There's been rumors all over the place. So it's like there was a rumor that Wilson wanted Brian Schottenheimer gone, the offensive coordinator. And now that he is gone, there's a rumor that he's angry that Brian Schottenheimer's gone. And that's a big part of the
it's like it's an either or thing. Like
yeah, it's like none of us really know for sure is what I'm getting at. You know what I mean? Like we haven't seen Pete Carroll come out and say, "Hey, I hate this guy," or Russell Wilson go, "I want to get the heck out of here." You know what I mean? Like like any working relationship, there's going to be difficulties. And like I said, I don't think Russell Wilson necessarily retires a Seahawk, but I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. And I think we all need to kind of cool the jets on anytime Russell Wilson wears like a different colored shirt, or if he doesn't necessarily say "Go Hawks" at the end of his like little interview for something completely unfootball related. That he's out of here, man. Him and Sierra, and it's all Sierra's evil doing. Like it's just completely ridiculous to me, and I can't stand it. Just like. I understand it's a story, but until he actually gets traded, like, let's pump the brakes a bit, because I don't think he's getting traded now because Dallas is off the table, right? The Bears are supposedly off the table because they would have taken that trade. What were the other two teams off the top of your head, Sasha?
I can tell you. I just remember those two because again, I hate to say when it's Seahawks related, I really don't try to pay attention to it unless it's something major, and I don't really listen to rumors. I'm not a big fan of rumors, but let me look that up. But go ahead and finish telling me what else.
But yeah, like I think those teams are like, if the trade was going to happen, it probably would have happened by now,
Right.
And I don't think it's going to happen this offseason, and it might not happen at all. Maybe they mend the fences. Maybe they boost up the offensive line, which they've already started to do. Maybe they go out and they win a Super Bowl. If they win the Super Bowl this season, do you think Wilson still wants to leave? Probably not, right?
Yes.
So cool. I would assume.
Let's see. So, okay, it was the Cowboys, Saints, Raiders, and Bears.
Yeah, and Saints just re-signed
Jameis
Winston, and then didn't they give Taysom Hill like an extension or something like that?
Yeah,
he's getting big money. How do you feel about that? Taysom Hill getting big money.
From what I'm aware, most of it is like incentives, and it's really to free up cap so they can be able to re-sign everybody. So
he's
to
getting
me,
$140 million, dude.
Yeah, $140 million. And when I said that, like, really,
is he going to be the starter?
I think that it's an open competition between him and Jameis. And again, they're saying that the contract is really just mainly all incentives. It's not like he was just, like we're giving what is his own, the tall guy again for the Broncos who signed with Houston.
Osweiler.
Osweiler. So Brock Osweiler. So yeah, I don't think it's like that. How's it looking so far?
I'm changing. I'm switching over to the Rutgers game right now, so I got to support my boys. So Syracuse, I believe, was still up. Yeah, they're up by
By
4
four.
with 39 seconds. Look like Syracuse could pull this off. So more brackets getting busted, more brackets
Yes.
being lit on fire. At this point, I really don't care. I'm just rooting for Rutgers and hoping they make it as far as possible, and that the Zags at least pull it out. So
Hey, I'll just put it like this. Everybody up there in the Rutgers area, the only reason why he's cheering for you all and he's saying this is because he doesn't want you guys rioting and like stringing them up and beating them up and everything.
that's not true. Got to support the college right there.
You
So
gotta support the college. That's right. So now one thing you're talking about is rumors. I don't know how you are, because me personally, I don't like rumors that are out there because anybody can say anything. Just
exactly.
like you said, if you're not putting your name to it, or like, hey, this person said this, then yeah, I just don't like rumors. I remember a couple of years ago when they're saying that the 49ers are going to go after Kirk Cousins. But one thing I always remember that the 49ers don't like letting their, stuff that getting released since John Lynch got there. He hates rumors. He does not. He hates rumors. But everybody's saying, "Oh, they're going after Kirk Cousins. They're going to bring him in because him and Shanahan, he coached him in Washington and he would love it." And I'm just like, that didn't come from the 49er organization. Where's this coming from? Where are these rumors? Where are these? You're just saying shit just to say it. So I'm with you with that one because you're right. Those were nothing but rumors. I may not be a big Sierra fan by no means, and that's a different story for a different subject or anything. But you're absolutely right. Those were just rumors. And you know this as well as I do because we're both studying journalism. Because it looks like everybody picked what Russell Wilson said, but not gave the whole audio. They mainly focused on, yeah, I don't like to get hit. But like you said, hey, but some of this is on me though.
Yeah.
So if they would have played the whole clip, then everybody would have been like, okay, yeah, I see where he's going with it. Instead, they picked like, I just don't want to get hit, and it seemed like I have a problem with the Seahawks organization. I think I need to leave. I want to get out of here now, and I want to go somewhere else. And I don't think that. And if I had to look at it, let's just speak hypothetically. Let's say they traded if Dak would have Dak was willing to sign that contract, before he signed the sign the contract, and then they traded him to Seattle for Russell Wilson and draft picks, whatever. You think Dallas would have been an instant contender?
With Russell Wilson?
Yes.
No. I think Dak Prescott's a really good quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw like how they struggled without him. Well, I mean, they struggled with him even last season because the defense was so atrocious. But like once he was gone, it felt like they couldn't. What won the division, like 7 games or something like that?
It was a 7-game winner.
Yeah, I think Dak Prescott easily could have won that division. You know what I mean? And I think maybe even if you think Wilson's better than Dak, which I do, but I don't think it's like a huge, gap or anything like that. Like I think they'd be a playoff contender. I don't know if they'd be an automatic Super Bowl contender because the defense is still kind of iffy. Offensive line is not as good as it once was. They used to be the best offensive line in football.
The best offensive line, yeah.
Now I think that belongs to Indianapolis Colts, which, so if I were Wilson, that would be a team I would have wanted to go to. The Indianapolis Colts.
Before trading for Carson Wentz, I think I would have took that trade. I would have made that trade too because, like you said, the best offensive line. You have two.
That's assuming that like they keep all their offensive linemen trading for Wilson, though. You know what I mean? That's the thing that a lot of people forget is they just take this. They're like, "What if we just took Wilson and just dropped him right in Dallas?" Like Dallas gives up nothing to get Russell Wilson. They're not doing it to be cool. Like you got to give something up. So.
You see the thing. Another thing is that a lot of people don't realize. Like, you have to realize that football isn't like Madden. You just don't, get a player because they were a 90 rating on this team, and then you could drop them on this team, and then they're going to still be the same thing. It's all more about scheme, what kind of offense slash defense it is. Special, it's all about the philosophy. This person was great, and this was great here. That doesn't mean that it's going to translate somewhere else. But I see Russell Wilson because I see Russell Wilson, that type of guy who can be able to adapt into any kind of team because he's just a really smart quarterback. He went from that quarterback that I'm not going to lose the game to I can win us the game. So
yeah, and the other thing, Sasha, is like these are also human beings.
yeah.
As you and I know, certain people work better with other people than they do others. You
Yes.
ever had I'm sure you've been in a situation where you were good at a certain thing and you went to work with someone else who was good at a certain thing, and for whatever reason, it just didn't work out. Maybe personalities, maybe you just didn't gel, you didn't mesh. You know what I mean? Like you said, it's not mad and it's not automatic that these guys aren't robots. You don't just drop him into position and then automatically he's putting up, 45 points a game without breaking sweat. Like these are all human beings. They all got to get used to each other. You know what I mean? So it's just like any other thing in life, so that's just the way it works.
You're absolutely right about that. Now, Dylan, what is it that because I was hoping that we could have gotten a discussion a couple of weeks ago, but I don't know if you realized down here a couple of weeks ago. First, we had a big ass ice storm, so
Heard about that.
Yeah, so pretty much the whole state was down, and then trying to adjust and then trying to play catch up with schooling and everything. So this is probably the really first time I can really be able to say like, okay, let me get a show going. But I'm not going to talk about the Super Bowl, but I want to ask you about free agency so far in the NFL, and I want to stick with the NFL because again, the free agency frenzy is just something that a lot of football fans we just love. Did you see any hit and miss? Did you see anything coming? I was like, oh my god, I can't believe this guy went here, or why didn't this guy resign here?
I think for me, the biggest one has been J.J. Watt to the Cardinals, and then just all the moves the Cardinals have been making. Like
Yes.
they've been super active in free agency. And as a Seahawks fan, and I'm sure you as a 49ers fan, you hate to admit, it worries you a little bit, right?
Oh, it really was.
It looks like they're getting better. And,
Yes.
they got A.J. Green now. They got J.J. Watt. They still got DeAndre Hopkins. They've added more pieces to the defense and the offense. Like, they look like they're wanting to make a push for that division. So I think the Cardinals are my on paper clubhouse leader for best free agency so far, because as we know, it is only on paper so far. So we don't know exactly how it's going to go. But that's who I would pick. What about you? What team or player has surprised you or impressed you?
Well, I could say right now, I'm gonna be honest with you. What surprised me is that Pittsburgh's wanting to get another go around with Big Ben.
Yeah.
I've been a big fan of Ben Roethlisberger since the first his junior year, of course, the year he came out, and I watched him in that Iowa game, and he stunk up the joint. He threw 5 picks, but I've been following his career ever since, and I'm again a big huge fan. And now it's just sad seeing that guy who you watched his career, and he's not that guy anymore. But he's saying, "I want to make another run," just like Drew Brees. It's as much as I may not like the Saints. It was sad watching him in that playoff game against Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And now he wants to come back. I'm thinking, I'm thinking, Ben, just hang it up. We've seen you. You've got 2 championships. You're probably, arguably, you or Terry Bradshaw can probably fight to see which is the greatest quarterback in Pittsburgh history. Which a lot of people say is probably Terry because he got 4 championships. But I don't. But again, Ben has really put that franchise on his back. It wasn't the defense, but another. That's
Right.
another for another time. It's just that I really feel like Ben. I think it's just sad that Ben wants to come back. Um, I'm really trying to figure out what's going on with Detroit because Detroit, pretty much everybody from Detroit is gone from Stafford to Jones, Galladay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to like what's going on there. Chicago, you know, Cleveland. You know, I'm liking what Cleveland's doing also. But those are pretty much like what I'm looking at it like. I guess I'm not looking at the big names or anything. I'm looking at like these surprises that are coming at me like, wow, I
I think
can't believe. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say I think Detroit is in full blown rebuild mode.
Okay.
They got Jared Goff, and a lot of people are like, why did they want Jared Goff? I think that was more of a favor to the Rams to take that Jared Goff contract and just to give Detroit someone to put under center while they
Mm-hmm.
accumulate draft picks and build up their team. Detroit is certainly not going to try to win right away, they're going to try to win right away, but they're not. They're not banking on winning right away, is what I'm getting at, right? They're definitely in a rebuild mode. So I also like what Cleveland is doing. Cleveland surprised me, and like my little brother is like always been a closet Cleveland Browns fan. He's like, it was the running joke that he picked him like every year for 10 years to be the sleeper team to make the playoffs, and they never did. And so they finally did this year, and then they throttled Pittsburgh in the playoffs, which I mean, for every Browns fan, that's got to be just a dream come true, So I think the Browns could be a team to watch. And as far as the other teams you mentioned, like Chicago, I don't know about Chicago, man. They just signed Andy Dalton. They also got Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky just signed with the Bills.
He signed with the Bills.
Yeah, so it's like you got Nick Foles and you got Andy Dalton under center. Matt Nagy's supposed to be this offensive genius. And then the defense is good. I guess you can hang your hat on that. But, I mean, there's not much for me as an outsider, and I don't know the Bears as well as, a hardcore Bears fan would, but there's not much to me to get excited about. I watched them in the playoff game against the Saints. It's kind of a brutal game to watch just because they couldn't get anything going. And even when they had a trick play, Mitchell Trubisky put it right on the money. I can't remember which receiver it was. He put it right in the breadbasket. Guy dropped it in the end zone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was just like, well.
It was fun while it lasted, right?
Best part about that game was it was on Nickelodeon and they did the slime zone. Other than that, though, it's like the Bears, I just don't believe in the Bears, I know everybody loves Nick Foles from Philadelphia, but he doesn't seem to have that magic anymore. That might have been just a one-time deal, because even before that, I know he had the 7 touchdown passes in a game or whatever, and he showed flashes, but he was never really like a superstar elite quarterback at any point, It's just shown flashes. And like he's good to have on your roster in your locker room, but I don't think, if I was the Bears, I'd be like, yeah, we got Nick Foles or we got Andy Dalton. Let's do this. This is all we need, So I think they're probably still kicking themselves for not drafting a different quarterback besides Mitchell Trubisky. So,
I mean, they chose. I mean, you had, and we can look back. We can look back at hindsight because I'm not gonna lie. I remember everybody was talking about Pat Mahomes in that draft. Like, oh yeah, Pat Mahomes going to San Francisco, and I saw him at Tech. I mean, I know, of course, he could sling the rock. But I wasn't impressed with him there. I mean, I've seen a lot of quarterbacks who can throw the ball up and down the field, and then they fizzled out in the league. So I'm like, no. So I mean, go ahead.
And the other thing is like that conference they play in there. It's hard to get too much confidence. It's like they don't play any defense, right?
No,
so it's like, of course, he's putting up big numbers, right? Like not to say he wasn't talented, but. This isn't like someone putting up 50 against Alabama,
Right.
Like he's,
And
so I'm right there with you. I thought Mahomes was a very interesting pick by Kansas City because of Andy Reid, and I was excited about that. But I don't think most people knew that he was going to. No one knew that he was going to develop into what he's developed into. Like anyone who says that is a liar. Maybe no one except for Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid,
maybe his girlfriend and his parents, they probably believe in him, that. But everybody else, come on, So I mean, so you had that draft with them, and then you went with Mitchell Trubisky, and you had DeShaun Watson there, which we're going to get to DeShaun Watson in a minute. And then you chose him, and now look at your franchises. I don't recall. I had to ask a lot of people, if you had to look back from the time you've been playing football mean, you've been watching football. Who would you say would be the greatest Bears quarterback of them all? If I recall, you started watching football in what? Did you say 99, 2000? Like when Sean Alexander was there, or
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, around that time. Yeah.
yeah.
So to
So,
me, to
yeah,
me even I not only that, but I consider myself like a student of the game, right? Like a
right,
mini
yeah.
historian, if you will. I like to go back
Mhm.
and watch old film, old clips. I've even gone back and watched old games on YouTube, Sasha. That's how big of an
Yeah.
NFL nerd I am, just to see
Mhm.
what because it's one thing to watch highlights on NFL Films Presents. It's another thing to actually watch how the game was
Then
played
watch the
back
game.
then.
Yes, yes,
And it was a
that's true.
lot different. It was a lot of fullback dive and a lot of
Mhm.
running up the middle and not as much passing and everything. But yeah, I think to me, the best quarterback in Bears history, and no one is going to like this answer, it's Jay Cutler. You know, like if you look at it statistically, he is the best quarterback in their history. Like he
Mhm.
didn't win like Jim McMahon, but if you put their stats together, Jay
He
Cutler, he annihilates him. And I know you have to account for the eras have changed, but Jim McMahon had arguably the greatest defense of all time carry him to the championship, right?
Mhm.
Like, like imagine if Russell Wilson had not gone on this big historic run since they won the title against the Broncos, and he just kind of
Mhm.
went away after that. No one would think Russell Wilson was the best quarterback in Seahawks history. They'd think he was the beneficiary of the best defense in Seahawks history, because that's
Mhm.
why they won the first Super Bowl, is because they absolutely shut down the Denver Broncos, who had the greatest offense of all time statistically up until that point. So defense
Mhm.
does win championships, and not to say that Jim McMahon wasn't a great quarterback, but Jay Cutler he was better. And I
Right.
know a lot of people don't like that answer because they say he wasn't a good leader and they didn't care as much, and that he was boring and he'd throw the pick at the end or whatever. Like maybe some of that stuff is true, maybe it's not true, but he at the end of the day is the best thing they've ever had. So which just shows you the just how bad it's been for the Chicago Bears in terms of finding Hall of Fame level talent at quarterback, right?
Right. You're right about that. And I had to think about that because I was talking with, because I know I talked that over with Titus about that, and pretty much everybody, arguably, even on Chicago sports radio. You may want to try sometime listening to Chicago sports radio. They have some characters on there. If you ever listen to them, you would love some of the people who call in their shows. It's just really interesting. Now, to wrap up the show, I have to ask you right now your thoughts on this whole thing about DeShaun Watson. I know that because again we are like, if people don't realize this, me and Dillon, we're studying we're studying for to be be on the radio, for news. I'm trying to be on the radio, trying to get my own show. Dillon also has dreams and aspirations. We're in journalism. We both got our associates at SAC for in journalism.
Go
So
Rangers.
is a Ranger. There we go. And one thing you're always told, you have to be impartial in when it comes to this. But this is something that I'm just kind of curious and to this day I'm just like wondering what the hell is going on here in this whole thing with DeShaun Watson. Don't you think that this just came out of nowhere? Like after he made the comment about he'd rather play for the 49ers or the Broncos, and all of a sudden we got up to 22 women he sexually assaulted.
I mean, yeah, it has really quickly escalated, as you
Mhm.
said, because I remember it wasn't that long ago when the first one came out, and I read it
Right.
over, and I was like, huh, that doesn't look good, but we'll wait to see what happens. Like all I have right now is like a Twitter message from a lawyer, you know,
Right.
and I know a lot of people made fun of the lawyer for the way he spoke or whatever it was. Like they're like, oh,
Oh,
this guy,
really?
they're like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. You know what I mean? Like no one gave much credibility, right? And then another
Right.
accusation came out, and then another accusation, and then another one. And it seemed like every time I logged onto Facebook or Twitter, there was more and more. And at this point, I'm not even sure how many it's up to. You said it's 22 now?
Last I saw was 22. There could be more up
And
to this
some of
date.
these, Sasha, these aren't just like accusations without any merit, I think, because if you've read some of the news posts on these, some of these go into specific graphic detail, and a
Yes.
lot of them are disturbing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't think this is just some fabrication. Like you said, we are journalists. We can't say, we're not here in a courtroom. Neither one of us are on a jury or anything like that.
Right.
So I will wait to say anything about that kind of thing, but it doesn't look good. And it doesn't look good for DeShaun Watson and for the people who's saying that this is obviously like some conspiracy by the Texans kind of thing. Because I've seen that floated online too. Like,
I've seen it all.
what benefit would that be to the Houston Texans organization? They wouldn't be able to trade him anymore. What, you think
Right.
they want to hold on to him so well they're going to just ruin his reputation with all these supposedly like conspiracy paid off women? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me at all. You know what I mean? And so, if anything, the Texans are probably like, man, I wish we have taken that trade before. If any of this comes out to be true. And another theory I saw floated was someone was saying maybe this is why he wanted out of Houston so bad in the first place, because his stuff might have been catching up with him. Because 22, that didn't happen over a weekend, right? If this is true, this is ongoing behavior by him, and it's been happening for a while. So I hope it's not true, but like I said, it looks very bad at this point. I've read some of the stories, and some of them, like I said, are disturbing. My heart goes out to the people affected, to the victims, and we'll wait to see what happens with due process and all that. But it does not look good for DeShaun Watson, which is, I know a lot of people don't want it to be true, and that's a lot of people's first jump is to defend the famous football player they know because he's really good and like he plays for the favorite team and he did this and endorsements, and nobody knows the victims, right? Like they're all nameless, faceless at this point. So a lot of people's first inclination is to defend this football player they never met, which I think is sometimes wrong. They just automatically assume that like he's being railroaded and it's all a lie and the Texans are behind it and the NFL's behind it. I think it's a bit far-fetched to get to that line of thinking myself personally. But what about you? What was your first thought when you saw it?
The first thing I thought was this just came out of nowhere. Like, what the hell is going on here? And then and then again, going to bring Titus's name into this because me and him we got into a conversation about this, and then I'm thinking that this just isn't a good look. Where the hell is this coming from? There was no pattern. We didn't see this. There's no rumor. She doesn't go. It doesn't look like he's going out clubbing. How is it that all of a sudden now he's over here making somebody, he's sexually harassing somebody, he's assaulting somebody, and then when they said that there are more, I'm thinking, what the hell is going on here? This some type of some type of Bill Cosby shit that's going on here? Is he just some habitual guy who just goes around sexually assaulting, women? What is going on here? I'm not gonna lie. At first, I thought that the lawyer was up to some bullshit, especially hearing that he is, he's friends with the McNairs and that there's some ulterior motive. I'm not gonna lie about that. But the more and more you sit back and you look at it, and then you're reading about it, like this is just a little bit too much. Because if it is the Texan organization, you said it best. And I know I told this to Titus. If it got wind that the organization was behind this, don't you realize that that's going to destroy all credibility and anything towards the McNairs? Don't you realize that they're going to be forced to sell sell the organization to somebody else? They're going to be shunned and shamed and everything like this because you ruined this guy's name. Lawsuits after lawsuits. It's going to be a domino effect if this is like if you're trying to railroad somebody.
It's a stretch. It's a stretch
yes.
at the very least, because what benefit does it have to them? What, they're
Right.
so petty that he wants to be traded that they ruin his reputation and then they keep him there?
Right.
And now he's got this horrible reputation as this like monster. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. So to me right now, I went from being, I think that there's more to this too. You know what? I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to see exactly what's going on. Let everything play out. Let me see what's going to go on here, and then let's go from here because I can't. I'm not going to just sit back and just play the guessing game anymore. I'm just going to want to start collecting the facts on this. But like you said, though if he is out there and he is making people feel really uncomfortable, sexually, shame on you. But if we come back to find out that you're destroying this man's credibility, then that's even hard because you know this as well as I do. When a man's reputation is destroyed because of sexual or molestation charges, regardless of if somebody says that they were false, he can't get his reputation back. So we'll just have to sit back and see exactly what's going on.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we have all the facts yet. I think this is going to be, in some ways, it feels like this story isn't getting enough press. You know what I mean? Like it's on the sports, it's on like sports channels, and like I'll see updates here and there with like another victim or another wrinkle to the story. But it feels like it should be a lot bigger than it is right now. And by that, I guess I mean I don't see a lot of the high-name sports personalities commenting on this, which is something that seems unusual to me, right? And I'm not going to name any names, but like who they are, I know who they are. I haven't seen a whole lot on that. I don't know if they're all just kind of waiting to see what happens, but at this point, you got to talk about it. It's out there, right? This is a thing now. I'm sure DeShaun Watson and his lawyer don't want this to be a thing anymore, but it is out there. It is a thing. You gotta prove his innocence or prove his guilt. Like one way or the other, we're gonna find out. So, and like I said, I think the Houston Texans being behind it is a ridiculous conspiracy. I think it has no merit. It doesn't make any sense. I think the people who are saying that are grasping at straws and just don't want to believe it, which I understand if he's their favorite player or something like that, this would be difficult. You know what I mean? Like if one of my favorite players did something like this, it would obviously be difficult. But at the end of the day, it's like these are all just humans out here. And like this kind of stuff does take place in the real world, as you and I know. Even athletes aren't above it. You know what I mean? So,
you're absolutely right about this because there's one thing that's heartbreaking to me, and I found this out. I found this out probably sometime this year. Actually, a good friend of mine, he was, we were talking about Colorado football. We're like saying, "Oh, Colorado, good team, good team." And then they were like saying, "Yeah, Jerry Rice's son plays here." I'm like, Jerry Rice doesn't have a son that plays for Colorado. They're like, "Yeah, I could have sworn he has a son that plays for Colorado." And I'm like, "No, he doesn't. His son, because if I recall, he only has 3 kids, and Jerry Rice Jr. He played for UCLA, and then he went to Baltimore and San Francisco and went nowhere." So looked it up and found out about Brendan Rice. Brendan Rice is his son. And the thing is that with that is Jerry Rice had a son outside of wedlock because he was still married to Jackie Rice. As a fan, a diehard fan, who Jerry Rice is my hero. When I found out that he had a child outside of wedlock, how that hurt my heart. I'm like, oh my God, really? My boy was out here just getting around, just having sex with all these women. I can't believe he cheated on Jackie Rice. I can't believe this. It hurts. So, that's the same way how I feel about when it comes to some people that are defending DeShaun Watson. Let's get the facts first. Of course, I like DeShaun Watson just as much as everybody. Loved him ever since Clemson. But again, we know him as the football player, not as the person.
Yeah, exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head right there.
Yeah. So other than that, Dillon, when it would be a good time to be able to get you back on here? Because I know you're a busy guy. We got midterms. Because I know I have a midterm tomorrow that I have to do, and then I have papers I have to write and everything. I'm graduating in May, so I don't know. You got another year?
No, I'm almost done too. After this, I got 6 credits I'll need to take over the summer. I'm probably going to try to do an internship. That's what I'm working on right now is filling out applications for internships, and then I'm done too. So, but in terms of when I can be back, let's talk more tournament in a couple weeks or a week or two or something like that. When then we get down to when all our brackets are completely destroyed. So let's talk tournament though, brother.
Not a problem. Not a problem. And you guys be sure to check out Dillon's podcast. Shows. They're great. I've been sitting there watching them. They're great. Him and his friends over there. And may I take this bump and triple overtime? Great shows. You guys will love. You guys will enjoy it. Hopefully next time we can get more people involved. And again, Titus is mad. So Titus, get over it, okay?
Sorry,
Not
Titus.
get over it.
Sorry, Titus.
But hey, thank you all for watching Anger Management. Remember, you've been warned, okay? Talk to you later, Dylan.